Hi everyone, welcome back to Face It with Dr. G. I'm Dr. G, and I have the pleasure of having Dr. Rivkin with us today. We are so excited to have you. Dr. Rivkin, you are very well known in the space.
Space?
The aesthetic space.
Okay, I thought it was like in the cosmos already. Cool.
If any of you listening aren't aware of his background, he is the owner and founder of Westside Aesthetics in LA. He went to Columbia undergrad and Yale Medical School, so he's not really smart at all. He did his residency in otolaryngology at the University of California, San Diego. Is and has authored numerous peer-reviewed publications and book chapters on non-surgical cosmetic treatments and serves as a lead investigator on FDA and NIH clinical trials on a regular basis.
Thank you. No, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you. It's good to see you.
Yes,
it's been a while.
You too. Yeah. And I know you have become well known for one specific treatment in non-surgical injectables, which is the non-surgical rhinoplasty. And you speak all over the world on this, and I would love to dive into how that happened. Obviously, there's a connection there with your training. How did you get there?
It's really, I love the procedure. And it's funny, I do it every day, and it never gets old. And it's so rewarding. The nose is in the middle of your face. And so people they're very focused on the appearance of their nose becomes more central to people's self-confidence than many other kind of parts of their body and many other parts of themselves. So they really, it's such it has really their nose has a central aesthetic sort of meaning for people. And so when they feel like it doesn't look like how they want it to look, or it doesn't look, it's just kind of, it really affects them. And so to be able to solve that, which is, in the best possible worlds, this wouldn't be a problem. And we wouldn't judge people based on their appearance, and it wouldn't make it shouldn't make a difference in society. But the way our society is these days, it does affect how people are treated to some degree and how they feel about themselves. But that being said, to be able to really solve that and to change that self-consciousness in 5 minutes there's no better feeling. It's so great. So
I have so many questions for you.
You know what I mean? You do that.
I think it's paramount, but I also think that everything's relative. And so my question to you is, when someone feels their nose is disproportionate, do you just say yes to them every time, or do you look at the other aspects of their face and say, no, I can actually add volume via biostimulator or whatnot to make your nose appear smaller?
For sure, because everything, and that's the thing. So let me answer your first question first. Yeah, in training, in ENT and head and neck surgery training, we had training in facial plastics, and training in surgical rhinoplasty, and so the results. And what I took away from that towards the non-surgical realm is an ability to really instinctively analyze a nose, because we'd look at noses all the time, and what do we want to do, and how do you break it down aesthetically, and how do you break down what the plan is surgically, and so I took that understanding of how to look and how to aesthetically really analyze someone's face and specifically their nose for rhinoplasty, and that really it served me well in the non-surgical realm. And so when I started to have this practice, which is 100% non-surgical aesthetics. And a friend of mine came in to my clinic, and she's Armenian, and she was like, I have this nose, and the profile is curved. I wish it was a straight nose. And I'm like, geez, these products just became FDA approved, and Restylane had just become FDA approved. So a long, long time ago, like 20 years ago. And I was like, I know what I want to see. I'll bet you that if I just make your nose straight, it'll blend into the rest of your face and it'll look smaller, And so we did it, and it did. And I was just like, wow, this is amazing. This is really remarkable in that if I can save these people surgery, going under the knife, because I know what a surgical rhinoplasty entails. It's not the worst thing in the world, but there's downtime, and there's discomfort, and there's swelling, and there's, it's expensive. It's a lot. And so if I can do that in 5 minutes, boy, is that exciting. So and then it just kind of took off. And then I did what any self-respecting person in Los Angeles does when they think that they've stumbled upon a new and interesting idea. I called it PR firm. And And I'm like, get me on TV. This is cool. So they got me at like Today's Show and stuff like that. And I was like, this is awesome. Let's go to New York.
Yeah, which is amazing because when you find your niche and you're really really good at it, the other part of your training and your background allows you to understand the anatomy. Let's talk about the
Yeah.
anatomy. Let's talk about why not every injector in the country or the world should be doing this treatment. I have chosen not to do it because I'll send them to you.
I honestly, and I welcome them, and I thank you, of course, for the confidence that you have to send it to me. And I think I'm a big believer in specialization within our field. I'm a big believer in figuring out what you really love to do and doing that over and over again because it's enriching in that you are the person who is looked to as the expert in a particular thing because nobody can be the expert in everything, right? And then you do what you really love to do, and then the things that you don't really love to do, you refer out and create a network of people that kind of interact with each other, help each other, and send patients to each other. I think that's wonderful. I mean, I think that it's and not all people think that's wonderful. Some people don't like it, and they want to just kind of keep everything in house and say that they can do anything. And I think that's
That's a
unwise.
recipe for disaster, actually. And I saw that in the pathology field where everything started becoming super subspecialized with fellowships, and you used to have general pathologists, and now you have the GI pathologist, GU, breast, everything. And in aesthetics, it's actually, I think what's happening is you have the general dermatologists who didn't go to cosmetic fellowship, who do cosmetics, but part-time. Is that 10% of your practice? Is that 20%? I see a lot of those complications, and it's not because they aren't good at what they do, it's just because you can't do everything well. And the flip side of that is, do you want to just be doing noses all day long, right? So you're setting yourself up to do something all day without any diversification. Blessing and a curse. If you love it, great.
For sure. And some people, it's not for some people. They don't like that kind of thing. I love it, so I'm cool with it. You make a great point, which is that when people ask me, "Hey, who do I go to for a facelift? Who do I go to for lipo? Who do I go to for this kind of thing?" I'm like, you go to the person who does it every single day. That specific thing that you're talking about. You don't want someone who's doing. I think personally. I mean, it's my opinion. I would not send someone to a person who is doing boobs and then doing noses. Right? Went back to back. I just, I think it's possible for them to do a good job. And I'm not saying anything like, bad about general plastic surgeons, but I want somebody to go to the person that is known for that particular thing. Like if you're the boob guy, you're the boob guy. If you're the nose guy, you're the nose guy. To me, that makes sense.
I agree, because what are you doing? You're perfecting your craft every single day, and you're up on the latest research and knowledge and techniques and all of that. How did you grow your practice? Let's transition to a little bit of business. Were you always kind of business focused, or was your MD background really what you thought you were? And now look at you as a business owner.
I would answer that question very differently now than I would have 10 years ago. I can tell you that. 10 years ago, my practice was smaller and it was more manageable. And so I had a good handle on how everything was happening. I could tell it was small enough where I knew what was going on in every part of my practice. My practice has grown, and now I have 9 other injectors, and business it's a headache. I'll tell you. I mean, you know this. You have multiple locations, and it's a headache. It's tough because either you spend all your time doing business, or like a big portion of your time doing business, and it eats into your private life. It eats into everything else, or you outsource it to somebody, and that means you trust somebody with like everything. And that's hard. That's really hard. It's really hard. And it's like, because it's just, letting go like that. Some people don't want to do this at all, business-wise. They're kind of like, they don't go to medicine to not be a business person, which is totally reasonable. I think I have some instinct for it, but I'm not, I'm certainly no MBA, and I certainly don't kind of understand the intricate financials that would take to run a sophisticated business. So,
well, I mean, I think, and then it gets to understanding the financials. Is that something that excites you or doesn't excite you, right? So for me, and growing this company, I'm very fascinated by that. And I actually love to learn the business principles more than at this point, love to learn the injecting principles, which
that's interesting. Okay, yeah.
They really haven't changed, right? I'm more fascinated by the challenge with business growth.
Yeah.
And, then by default, encouraging my other 9 injectors to grow and build and, accelerate, and essentially me becoming obsolete as an injector, which I'm not there yet, and growing the business and expanding. So I think it's all about what you want to do, but you don't really
Yeah.
know until you're there. And you say you don't have an MBA. I don't believe that going to business school gives you any
No,
sort of credibility
I
or
don't
any.
either. I think people make connections.
Right. But it also, you have to go through it in order to learn and understand what it takes. And even if you do think in medical school that you're entrepreneurial, which I always have been, maybe you get there and you're like, yeah, I'm all set.
Yeah. I know. So it's a funny thing.
What do
I
you do
think
to maintain your culture, and how do you keep all the moving parts together?
I try to, well, I mean, it takes time. It takes time and it takes attention. You can't, there's not really, it's hard to have shortcuts. I mean, having someone who you trust at the head of it, or within having good people in key positions, I think is really important. And that's really very difficult as well, is selecting the HR component, selecting the right person
Right.
to lead and to have responsibility. Not easy. So none of this stuff, none of this stuff is easy. I mean, you sit across from someone. I mean, nobody taught me how to how to hire correctly, and how to do an employment interview in a way that, where I'm guaranteed to pick out someone who's really who's really good, as opposed to someone who's just kind of, who's kind of bullshitting. It's hard. Some people are really good at bullshitting. They pull the wool out
Right.
over my.
And they always say hire slow, fire fast, and I'm like, what does that mean? How do you
What?
hire
Yeah,
someone
yeah.
slowly?
And by the way, what does that mean in California? Like in California especially. Well, I don't know about Massachusetts how it is, but like, boy, oh boy, the employment laws are vicious. Yeah. And so like, yeah, okay, fire fast. Okay, the last
sued.
part, get sued fast.
Right.
Like, have fun.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. And so I think, I've learned more from the people I've hired that are no longer with the company. I've learned more from that and continue to grow, but you have to be okay with those failures. If you want to say they're failures, I think they're growth opportunities, because if you're not in my practice, you don't belong here, and I've learned from you. But it's a certain type of mindset that you just have to have. So it's interesting. But it all does come down to trust, and how do you find those people?
Yeah, and it's just, I mean, I guess the advice I give people, or the advice I think about, is it's not easy. Anybody that thinks they're going into this and it's going to be like this, we're going to be minting money and there's like these massive profit margins, they're smoking crack, man. It's not hard.
Which I think is interesting for you, because you gave up the surgical side, which I
Yeah.
think has more of a profit margin. Obviously, the overhead is much more. Maybe they're the same at the end because of the team you need around it, but non-surgical injectables, the whole space has become so constricted, and just, yeah, it's challenging. So I give you
I
credit.
mean, 16 years ago, 20 years ago, boy, it was much easier, I can tell you that. I mean, 20 years, when I was just starting this thing out, I mean, also I was younger, and so I was like all cocky.
Had all the
But
energy in the world.
yeah, I also had I didn't have two kids jumping up and down on my head.
Yeah.
But I was just like, this is a no-brainer. I'm the only one doing this full time. I'm the only one. Everybody else is doing like, some injectables and mostly derm, or some injectables and mostly like, surgery. And I'm going to specialize in this. I know what I'm doing. I can relate to patients. I can make connection with people, very easily. And this is going to be, my overhead's low. The profit margins are good. This is easy, and it was easy. And then it wasn't.
But what do you think has changed? Because I completely agree with you. I look at the space now. Would I open G-Face right now? But I truly think the answer is yes, because I didn't know what I didn't know. I wasn't in the space. I didn't see everything I see today.
But I think there's a lot more people. Well, I mean, there wasn't even the thought of having mid-levels or extenders opening their own practices. I mean, that's been over the last, what, 7 years?
Yeah,
Like
I was
something
gonna say
like that.
7 to 8 years. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, which I think is great for the marketing, in general, because there's some really great injectors. And it's nice for them to get out and really kind of make their do their thing and do their thing unfettered by like, having to work with, within a physician's office and stuff like that. But there's a lot of people doing what we do, and I think it makes it tougher, makes it more difficult because because the whole thing, right? The whole thing was when I first started, what was in my mind always, like every day it was in my mind, is why should people come to me as opposed to anybody else? What is the reason? What's the differentiator? What makes me special? And you have to answer that, I think, every day by how you treat patients, by how your systems are in terms of, how patients encounter you and how patients experience the practice in the office, and it was simple to differentiate at that time because it was just I have the first, really, maybe not the first, but one of the first good websites with good information on it, and people, like, I found there was so before Yelp, before Google reviews, before any of this, there was a site called City Search. Remember that? Okay, well, there you go. So 20 years ago, there was a site, or 2019, 18 years ago, there was a site called City Search. And it was basically the same kind of thing where it's just like businesses and reviews and, that kind of stuff, right? And so and this stuff wasn't on City Search. And so I did I did a nice profile on City Search with lots of information and pictures and all that kind of stuff. And suddenly I was number one on Google. After being open for like a few months, I was number one on Google for Botox in Los Angeles. I was like, this is the best thing. This is the easiest thing since sliced bread.
This is the easiest thing.
I'm a friggin' genius. I should get like the Nobel Prize for business. This is amazing.
Wow.
I used these sites, and I did it on purpose, where I was like, okay, this site is obviously a big site that scores well on Google. Google is the bottleneck. Again, people didn't realize this. I'm like, okay, Google is the bottleneck. This is where people are going to go for their information. This is a site that's big and that scores all the time high on Google. I want to score high on this site in order to then leapfrog into Google, and it worked. Yeah. So there's these little tricks that at the time were, right now are like, duh, of course you'd do that. But at a time where nobody was thinking that. So it's more complex now.
So when you say it's all about what the patient says and it's all about that patient relationship, I am reading a book, I'm listening to books, that's another thing, I listen to books all the time, on the Net Promoter System or Net Promoter Scale. I don't know if you've heard of this.
No.
But it's fascinating, and for all of you listening, if you're business owners, you should absolutely Google this. I forget, or look on Audible, I forget what the actual book is called. But Net Promoter System essentially is when you go to an appointment and you have an experience with somebody and you get an email, how likely are you to refer us to a friend or a family or a colleague? And I started responding to those. I used to just delete them because I didn't care. But those are there for a reason, and it's part of the Net Promoter System. So in your practice, you have promoters, you have passives, and you have detractors. And essentially the promoters are what fuel your company. How do you get all your patients to be promoters, and that, anybody they talk to, it seeps out of their pores that you've saved their life or changed their life.
Yeah.
How do you convert the passives to the promoters, and how do you actually get rid of the detractors? So keeping promoters and getting rid of detractors are actually the same weight when it comes to what's important to your company. And it's just fascinating. So looking at that data, understanding that data, talking to your patients that are promoters, and even your patients in general, why are you here? And I've been doing it recently.
Yeah.
Why are you here? And they sit and they look at me, they're like, am I in trouble? Why are you asking me this question? And they say to me, because of the people. Every single one of them. It's not because of the result. It's not because of the experience. It's because of the people.
Well, the people are part of the experience.
Right. Yes, they go together, but it's the relationships.
I agree. Fully agree. No question. I mean, I have people that have been here for, 17 years. We were just talking about one person. She flies in from Texas because she moved to Texas, but she loves coming, and she loves that same thing for you. I have people that have been here for a decade, and they see this, working, and so they come in, they see the face that they have a relationship with, and it's nice.
Yeah, and they feel seen and they truly feel like you really take care of them. So I think that's really important when you're building a company, and when it gets in the weeds, you get in the weeds with all the business stuff. Why are you actually there? You're there because of people. But I agree, it's tiring and all the business stuff can get exhausting, and you lose sight of why you're doing what you're doing and why you started what you're doing. But it's all good. Okay, so I have another question.
Yeah.
You're traveling all over the country all the time and all over the world for conferences. A lot of us feel overwhelmed, I think, with which conference to attend, why are they important, why do you choose to speak at certain ones versus other ones? Is there a reason?
There's a lot of conferences. I'm trying to limit to some degree how, and every time we speak at conferences, that's time that we're not in the practice. And these days, I think it behooves us to be cognizant that economic kind of changes or economic climate affects our field as well, and so we have to be. I think I'm more conservative about how much time I spend away from my practice, because I feel like the economy these days is a little shaky and people are not feeling quite as confident with their money. So I want to be there a little bit more. I don't think I can kind of be as cavalier about income flow. Well, okay, so can I do a shameless plug?
Sure.
So on July 12th, me and Sadat run a conference here called Expert Symposium.
About that.
Yeah, so on Saturday, it's a one-day thing on Saturday. Sort of from people, more people from the area. Occasionally we get people who travel, but the nice thing about it is that it's cadavers, that you hands-on cadavers, live injection presentations and lectures, and it's Sykes, myself, Sadat, Yolin, and I think there's a couple of other faculty members, but we're there all day long. So it's like an 8-hour talk where everybody's chiming in. So it's kind of fun. Anyways, so if you want anybody out there that's interested in seeing that, I think that's a really nice experience that is valuable for people.
That's in LA or that's in, where'd you say?
LA, Beverly Hills. It's at the peninsula. So contact Sadat and David Sadat, and he'll get you in. But I think it's actually not easy. It's not obvious anymore as to what the really good conferences are. Certainly internationally, IMCAS is enormous, mind-blowing, and gargantuan.
You'll find something that works for you.
You'll find something there, because there's just so much going on. It's interesting. AMWC Monaco is always a good conference where it's a little bit more manageable, a lot more manageable than IMCAS, and it has really good information, good speakers. But domestically, it used to be that VCS was the conference that everybody went to, but now there's VCS and there's Aesthetics Show. I mean, I personally think they need to merge them together into one conference, because
They're
VCS
the exact same thing. Yeah, and they're like a month apart or something.
Right. I don't think it makes sense, because VCS there's some surgical content, on TAS there's not, but it's just not. I don't think it's, because the attendance is they should merge them together, and then I think it'll be a pretty good conference if they merge them together. Because now there's there's more extenders at TAS, and then with VCS it's not very well attended, because you can't, as a conference these days, you can't rely on docs, because it's just not going to be very well attended. So I think that, and then I don't know.
Yeah.
I think you guys started.
All of these I have a conference. It's very different though and very niche, the Face It Live. But I think it's all about now just figuring out where you are in your professional career. If you're just starting out, going to one of those massive ones to just get your feet on the ground helps to just figure out even just the vendors in the space.
Yeah.
But as you accelerate, what are you interested in? I obviously feel that everyone needs to have some sort of ultrasound education. You don't have to be perfect, but you need to know, if you don't have an ultrasound, who do you talk to? Just like if I'm doing, if I have a patient that needs non-surgical rhinoplasty, who is my go-to? Those types of relationships are really important. And obviously anatomy is something that we just need to continue to learn over time. I personally think once you're at least 3 years in, it's more of the small group learning. I think that's more, it's more beneficial, and you create those relationships. So people go to the bigger conferences just to have a good time.
You know what I just thought of, talking about smaller conferences? There's one that is, I think, quite interesting. It's called CMAC.
Yeah.
Of course, obviously.
CMAC. Yeah.
So CMAC is interesting because it's going to be in Chicago this year. It's usually in London, but now it's in Chicago this year. That's an interesting conference because it's really very much focused on complication management. It's pretty high level though, so it's not for people who are just kind of starting out. And there's a lot of ultrasound data. There's a lot of like complications data, which I think for kind of high intermediate to expert injectors, I think it's really nice. Aesthetic next is big. I think that's
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's
so
beneficial. I think just looking at the speakers, I think Aesthetic Next tries to bring in fresh
yeah.
minds, which I appreciate because we just see the same people over and over again. Sorry, that's you, but you speak very vibrantly and everyone wants to hear you every time. But it's true. Just bringing in those fresh minds that have different things to say, I think is very unique. But CMAC, they bring in ophthalmologists, they talk about blindness, protocols for that. So it's not just the injectable side, ultrasound, it's fascinating. And it is nice it's in Chicago this year. So
Yeah.
I think it's the second week of October.
I think so. Yeah.
Something like that. Okay, I have one last topic and then we
Okay.
can go.
Okay.
So when it comes to your practice, so when did you open your practice?
2003.
Okay, so a
It's
while
been a
ago,
while. Yeah.
22 years.
Yeah. I opened my practice, by the way, just as a funny thing. So I opened my practice. A friend of mine had a hair salon in next to UCLA in Westwood Village. I was like, and at the time I was doing ENT, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to pick boogers anymore. I really don't. And so I was thinking about this, and she's like, well, but I'm like, I don't know how to do it. I don't know where to go, and I can't, I don't have $1 million. And she's like, well, I have a space up above my hair salon if you want to like check it out. So I started my practice in an 800 square foot space above a hair salon, thinking that these hairdressers are going to refer me patients. And so in Westwood Village.
I
So I'm
love
thinking
that.
hairdressers are going to refer me patients, and UCLA, I'll have UCLA people come over. So this will be great.
So
And there's a Whole Foods like right there. So I'm like, okay, for lunch, I'm taken care of.
yeah,
So
and just tell everyone where you are and be like, hey, do you know who I am?
Yeah.
Right over here.
So not
That's how I
exactly like
started.
not
Yeah.
Beverly Hills, and that's the thing. And specifically, I kept out of Beverly Hills because I was like, oh, I don't know that I want to go there. I don't know that I want that necessarily. Beverly Hills just sounded very overwhelming and kind of high maintenance to me, and I was like, I just want regular people. And but I did have people coming in, like sometimes they'd come into my office, or they call. No, yeah, they come in for consultation. Well, no, I think they call and they'd be like, "Oh, where are you located?" And we're like, "Oh, it's in Westwood, such and such a place." And they're like, "Oh, you're not in Beverly Hills." We're like, "No, we're in Westwood." Like, "Oh, okay, thank you, bye bye." I'm like, "Okay, bye bye."
So funny.
I mean, this
It
is the
is what it
thing.
is, but you have to start somewhere. I was in a nail
What?
salon. I
Yeah.
mean, you have to start somewhere. But what do you think of consolidation of aesthetic
Oh,
practices,
yeah.
private equity? How do you feel? Would you ever do it? Tell me a little bit about your thoughts.
I mean, I think it's an interesting question. I know that, I mean, basically, at this point, the leaders of our field are all in. They've all sold, right? I mean, there's a few exceptions, but not a lot. I mean,
And when you
but
say
that's,
leaders, do you mean those have sold? They have sold, so now they're adding to the research. They're doing more publications. They have the time to do other things, or
no, I think, I mean, the people that have been kind of around for a long time have sold their practice. I don't know what they're doing. I mean, they've sold, but they're still working within the practice. I'm not sure how this has changed their lives. Some people, it's different with everybody, I think. Some people are doing more research. Some people are kind of doing more speaking and flying around more and conferencing, and so it depends.
but at the end of the day, I think what people need to realize is when you sell your practice, you're not leaving your practice. And a lot of
Oh,
times you get your EBITDA is multiplied by a certain number and that's the number you sell for. However, you're reinvesting usually 49% of that back into the big conglomerate. You keep the remainder, 51%, which is taxed, and you're still working for someone else now,
Right,
and
which a
you're
lot of us
waiting
don't like.
for that larger company, private equity company, to sell.
Right.
So it's not as glamorous as it sounds. And I think it's just almost like it's becoming suffocating with private equity here and there. I get probably 5 emails a day about either investing in my company or buying my company or this and that. And I've gone through, the process and walked away from it because I was like, obviously I'm not ready yet and I want to keep growing and scaling. And yes, I'm exhausted, but why would I do that right now?
I know, I know. I'm always, whenever I go to conferences, I always have a running kind of focus group, running like kind of poll about, how are you? How are you feeling about this whole, like, about having sold? Do you feel like the loss of control? Do you feel like you've lost control and that's bugging you or not? Because a lot of us who are entrepreneurial don't really appreciate working for somebody else and having somebody else call the shots. We like being in control, and that psychologically, not being in control, I think takes a bit of a toll for some of us. Some people it doesn't matter.
Some people are burned out, they want to be done. But I think the other very fascinating observation I have is those people who have sold, the business owners who have sold to a certain company, let's say X, they're not now walking around at conferences speaking on panels promoting company X that bought them because they will do better if you sell to the same company. So everything is becoming it's not transparent at all. So, they're like, oh yeah, you need to talk to so-and-so in private equity because they're amazing. Right. And then you find out, well, they sold to them, so they want to make the connection so that they get better. I mean, it's just like, it feels just slimy to me.
There's certainly ulterior motives. That's very true.
Yeah.
That's very true. And that's like, and they'll come up, yeah, because some of these guys they'll come up to me and they'll be like, hey, listen, you really, as a friend, I want to tell you, you really got to do this, and I can facilitate this, and I think you should really have this conversation because it's just it'll be so good for you. And then they're like, I know you, you'll be so happy, this will be great. As a friend, you should do this. I'm like, oh, okay, kind of, but whatever.
I think it's different if you were to go to them and say, listen, I'm really thinking about selling. Can you introduce me to your connections or whatever? But it often happens the other way, which there's nothing wrong about it. I just think the lines are getting so blurred with who's loyal to who and what the motivation is.
Well, loyalty to money trumps a lot of things, unfortunately.
Yeah. And so now my idea is, why would I even sell to private equity? I'll just sell privately to someone else, probably sell for less, but I won't have to deal with all of that and I won't have to work. I can just sell it and be done. I mean, there's different ways you can get around it, but I just think it's very interesting. And I do think it's happening. Obviously it is happening and it will continue to happen and it's going to continue to affect us.
Yeah, and I wonder what the kind of, because they're all kind of, they're in it for a certain period of time and then they sell to somebody else, to a bigger fish. And so the question is, are those sales, because it's been going on for a little while, are those sales actually happening? And is the promise of this pot of gold at the end of the 5 years coming true for people?
And is it what you signed up for? Are you getting the same benefits you thought? Because I've heard it's not necessarily happening.
Yeah, I mean, I know some people that are quite happy, seemingly quite happy, and I know some people that are seemingly not thrilled. So I don't know. So it's interesting because you are. I mean, no matter what, it's a gamble. No matter what, it's a gamble because it's that question like, well, and then in 5 years we're gonna sell, and then there's gonna be like this big massive event. You're gonna be showered like money. The skies are gonna open up and money is gonna pour down on you like a monsoon. I'm like, okay, that sounds good, but they say it as if like it's a preordained event. Like this is like like day follows from night. The skies are going to open up and shower you with money. But it's not that way, because business people, I really now realize how business people talk now that I've dealt with them enough. And it's like, you can't believe a word they say, they're just like, oh, yeah, and of course it's going to happen. It's like, oh, sorry, we don't know why it didn't happen. So sorry.
Too bad. But I also think at the end of the day, when it comes down to selling your baby, right? It's your baby that you've grown. I don't think people are as focused on the money. I think, it matters. But at the end of the day, I think the people that do sell are just desperate to get rid of all those managerial responsibilities and the HR and all that stuff. They're just like, I don't want to do it anymore. And it becomes worth it to them.
I feel that.
Yeah.
That's a good reason.
Yeah. So, well, this was awesome.
It's
Thank you so
always a
much for
pleasure.
taking the time.
Thank you. This is fun. It's interesting to talk about these things. But usually, we know it's a lot more dry. We don't talk about like the stuff that's, I think, the stuff that's really most interesting, which is what you've gone through. Kind of
Yeah,
this is stuff that
and
makes
people want to
us.
hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So thank
thanks.
you so much. I appreciate you taking the time on try number two. I thought you were going to stiff me this time too.
Never, never, never.
But tell people where they can find you, how they can get in touch with you.
Oh yeah, Instagram. It's Dr. Rivkin, Dr. Rivkin. Where else am I? I guess.
Your website.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, website is Rivkin Aesthetics or Westside Aesthetics. But these days, everybody goes through social media. And I mean, I think maybe when we have this conversation in a year or two, everybody's going through AI, and they'll be like, "Well, just Gronk me," or like just Groupled me. I don't know.
Yeah, I can't. I have no idea. But thank you so much for being here. For all of you, like, subscribe, share, and we'll see you again next time.
Thank you. See ya.